Some families are built on love, some are built on sacrifice, and some are built on secrets so heavy they can break generations. This is not just a story about two brothers, one sister, and their parents. This is the kind of story where blood ties get tested, loyalty gets messy, and one decision changes everything. If you've ever believed family always has your back, this story might make you think twice. In a quiet American neighborhood where white fences hide loud problems, lived a family that looked perfect from the outside. A father who worked 2 jobs, a mother who never complained, 2 brothers chasing different dreams, and one sister who saw everything but said nothing. They laughed together, they ate dinner together, they smiled for the world. But behind closed doors, this family was slowly cracking. Because sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. This is their story. What if the biggest betrayal of your life comes from your own blood? The house on Maple Street didn't look special. Just another middle-class home in a small town outside Chicago, USA. 2 floors, old wooden porch, a mailbox that leaned a little to the right. But inside that house lived the Walker family. And trust me, this place had seen some stuff. Robert Walker, the father, woke up every morning at 5 a.m. sharp. No snooze button, no excuses. The man ran on black coffee, worn-out boots, and pure grit. By day, he worked construction. By night, he drove a delivery truck. He used to say, "Ain't no shortcut to putting food on the table." His wife, Linda Walker, was the heart of the house. Soft-spoken but strong. She carried stress like a pro, quietly. She made sure the house stayed warm even when money was tight and the future looked shaky. If love was currency, Linda was rich. Then there were the kids. Jason, the eldest son, was 24, tall, sharp jawline, always restless. He had that "I'm gonna make it big" attitude. College dropout, but street smart. Jason hated the idea of living paycheck to paycheck. He wanted more, fast money, fast life, no waiting. Ethan, the younger brother, was 20, calm, thoughtful, a total opposite. He believed in slow wins. He worked part-time at a grocery store and dreamed of finishing college. Ethan trusted easily, maybe too easily. And then there was Emily, the youngest at 17. Emily was different. She noticed everything. The tension at dinner, the way Jason avoided eye contact with their dad, the way Ethan defended Jason even when he messed up. She was quiet, but her silence was loud. That night, they all sat around the dinner table. Linda served food like always. Robert talked about work like nothing was wrong. Ethan cracked a joke. Emily watched. Jason stayed silent. Something felt off. When Robert finally spoke, his voice was low. "Jason, you still looking for a real job, or you just hustling vibes these days?" The room went dead silent. Jason leaned back, smirked, and said, "Relax, Dad. I got things under control." Robert slammed his fork down. "That's what you said last year." Ethan jumped in, trying to cool things down. "Yo, chill. We family." But Emily felt it. This wasn't just another argument. This was the beginning of something ugly. And none of them knew it yet. But this house on Maple Street was about to change forever. The next morning, the house on Maple Street felt different. Not louder, not chaotic, just heavy. Jason was already gone before sunrise. No note, no goodbye. Just the echo of the front door slamming like a bad omen. Linda noticed immediately. She always did. "He didn't even eat," she whispered while rinsing a coffee mug. Robert grunted. "Kid thinks he's grown. Let him figure life out the hard way." Ethan stood near the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder. He wanted to say something, but swallowed his words. Arguing with his dad was like arguing with a brick wall, pointless and exhausting. Emily sat on the stairs, pretending to scroll on her phone. But she wasn't online. She was thinking. Jason hadn't slept at home 3 nights this week. That wasn't normal. Jason, meanwhile, was cruising downtown Chicago in his beat-up Honda, bass-thumping, mind-racing. He pulled up outside a low-key warehouse near the river. No signboard, no cameras out front. Sketchy vibes for real. Inside waited Marcus. Marcus was the kind of dude who smiled too much and trusted too little. Designer jacket, gold chain, cash always on hand. He hugged Jason like a brother, but watched him like a stranger. "You late, man," Marcus said. Jason smirked. Traffic was wild. "What you got?" Marcus leaned in. "Easy money, no sweat. One-time move. Jason hesitated. That's when Marcus dropped the line that changed everything. You want to stay broke forever? Or level up? Jason exhaled. Say less. Back at home, Linda couldn't shake the feeling in her gut. She called Jason, straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail? Her hands started shaking. She remembered Robert at Jason's age. Angry, broke, reckless. History had a nasty habit of repeating itself. Emily walked into the kitchen. Mom, Jason's lying? Linda froze. What do you mean? I heard him last night. On the phone. He said, after this run, I'm out. Nobody says that about a normal job. Silence. That's when Ethan walked in and heard everything. Wait, what run? He asked. Linda's voice cracked. I think your brother is in trouble. That evening, Robert came home earlier than usual. He found Ethan sitting alone on the porch. Where's your brother? Robert asked. Ethan looked up. I don't know, Dad, but whatever he's into, it ain't good. For the first time in years, Robert didn't get angry. He looked scared, because a father knows when his son is walking the wrong path. And somewhere in the city, Jason stood in a warehouse holding a bag that didn't belong to him, heart pounding, palms sweaty, realizing too late that easy money always comes with a heavy price. And this time, the bill was about to hit the whole family. Night fell hard over Chicago. The warehouse lights flickered like they were tired of keeping secrets. Jason stood near the back door, duffel bag at his feet, heartbeat going crazy. Inside the bag, cash and something else he didn't want to think about. Marcus paced back and forth, phone glued to his ear. Yeah, chill. It's handled, he said, then hung up and turned to Jason. Listen, bro, change of plans. Jason's stomach dropped. That wasn't the deal. Marcus shrugged. Deals change. Welcome to real life. Jason clenched his jaw. He wanted to walk out, wanted to grab the bag and bounce, but fear glued his feet to the floor. Once you step in this world, it's not that easy to step out. You good? Marcus asked, eyes sharp. Jason nodded, even though he wasn't. That was mistake number one. Across town, the Walker house was wide awake. Linda sat on the couch, hands folded like she was praying without words. Emily sat beside her, knees pulled to her chest. The TV was on, but nobody was watching. Ethan stood near the window, staring at the street. Every passing car made his chest tighten. I'm going to look for him, Ethan said. Robert turned slowly. Sit down. Dad, I said sit. His voice was firm but shaky underneath. You don't go chasing trouble. That's how families lose sons. Ethan snapped. We're already losing him. Silence hit like a punch. Emily looked at her father for the first time, not as a kid, but as someone seeing fear in a grown man's eyes. Back at the warehouse, things went sideways fast. Sirens, distant but getting closer. Marcus cursed under his breath. Yo, we got a problem. What kind of problem? Jason asked. The kind where you don't ask questions. Grab the bag. Jason froze. You said this was clean. Marcus laughed, cold. Bro, nothing's clean. Move. Jason grabbed the duffel and ran out the back door into the freezing night air. His lungs burned. His thoughts crashed into each other. What am I doing? What if I don't make it home? A police car screeched past the street ahead. Jason ducked into an alley, heart beating out of his chest. He pulled out his phone, hands shaking, and dialed the only number that felt safe. Ethan. The call connected. Jay? Ethan said, confused. I messed up, Jason whispered. I'm in deep. Ethan's blood went cold. Where are you? Before Jason could answer, headlights flashed at the end of the alley. Click. The call dropped. Ethan stared at his phone like it betrayed him. I'm going, he said, already grabbing his jacket. Robert stepped in front of the door. If you walk out that door, Robert said quietly, nothing will ever be the same. Ethan looked his father straight in the eyes. Then it already isn't. And he walked out. Emily burst into tears. Linda covered her mouth, trying not to scream. Outside, Ethan didn't know it yet, but his choice that night would put him face to face with a truth that would split this family wide open. Because some lines, once crossed, can never be undone. Ethan drove through the city like his life depended on it. Streetlights blurred past his windshield. His phone stayed clenched in his hand, refreshing the call log again and again. No signal, no callback, nothing. Every second felt like an hour. "Come on, Jason." "Pick up," he muttered. But Jason didn't. Police sirens echoed across the city. Jason was running now, full sprint. The duffel bag slapped against his side, heavy with regret. He cut through a side street and slammed into a parked car, barely keeping his balance. That's when he saw her. Emily, standing at the corner, hoodie pulled up, eyes wide with fear. "Emily," Jason whispered, stunned. "What the hell are you doing here?" She swallowed hard. "I followed you." Jason's heart dropped. "You what?" Before he could say another word, red and blue lights washed over the street. Emily froze. Jason's brain screamed move, but his body locked. An officer shouted, "Hands up now!" Jason looked at his sister, really looked at her, and for the first time, the tough guy act cracked. "Don't say anything," he whispered. "No matter what." The sirens grew louder. Ethan arrived seconds later. He skidded to a stop and jumped out of the car just as officers tackled Jason to the ground. Emily screamed his name. "Jason!" Ethan ran forward, but a cop shoved him back. That's my brother," Ethan yelled. He didn't hurt anyone. The duffel bag hit the pavement. It burst open. Cash scattered everywhere. The street went dead silent. Emily collapsed to her knees. At the police station, time moved slow. Jason sat in an interrogation room, wrists cuffed, staring at the table. The tough image was gone. He looked young, scared, human. Across the hall, Emily sat wrapped in a blanket, shaking. A detective leaned in. "You want to tell me why a 17-year-old girl was standing next to a bag of dirty money?" Emily closed her eyes. This was it. The secret she'd been carrying alone finally clawed its way out. "I knew," she whispered, "about the job, about Marcus." The detective raised an eyebrow. "How?" "Because Marcus used to come to our house," she said. "Years ago. He and my dad." Silence. Meanwhile, Robert sat in the waiting room, face pale. Linda held his hand so tight it hurt. When the detective approached, Robert already knew. His shoulders slumped like the past had finally caught up. "Mr. Walker," the detective said, "we need to ask you about Marcus Reed." Linda turned sharply. "Why does my husband know that name?" Robert closed his eyes. "Because the truth was ugly. Marcus wasn't just some street hustler. He was Robert's old partner. Back when Robert was younger, broke, angry, running from responsibility, a life he swore he left behind. But the past doesn't stay buried. It comes back, and it collects." Jason stared through the glass as his family argued outside. He finally understood. This wasn't just his mistake. This was a family curse. And now, all of them were paying the price. The interrogation room smelled like cold coffee and bad decisions. Robert Walker sat across from the detective, hands folded, eyes fixed on the table. The man who once carried steel beams like they were. Nothing now looked crushed by memories. "He thought we're dead. You ran with Marcus Reed in the late 90s, the detective said calmly. "Boosting trucks, moving cash, nothing big. Until it was." Robert exhaled slow. "I walked away." The detective nodded. "Yeah, and Marcus didn't." Linda waited outside, heart pounding. She had never seen her husband like this. Robert was always the strong one, the unbreakable one, but now he looked like a man exposed. Ethan sat beside her, fists clenched. "So this is why Jason got pulled in," Ethan muttered. "Marcus knew exactly where to hit." Linda looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Your father tried to protect you kids by lying to us." Ethan snapped. Emily stayed quiet. She already felt guilty enough. She had known Marcus was bad news and said nothing. That silence was eating her alive. Inside the room, the detective leaned forward. "Here's the deal, Robert. Marcus is bigger than your son, bigger than you. We've been chasing him for years." Robert looked up. "What are you saying?" "We want Jason to cooperate." The words hit like a gunshot. "No," Robert said instantly. "He's just a kid." "He's an adult," the detective replied. "And he's facing serious time unless he helps us bring Marcus down." Robert's jaw tightened. He had escaped this life once. Now it was reaching for his son. History repeating itself. Again, Jason sat alone in a holding cell. No phone, no noise, just thoughts. He replayed every choice, every shortcut, every lie. The idea of prison finally felt real. Not like the movies. like years of his life just gone. When the detective sat across from him, Jason already knew what was coming. "You help us," the detective said, "or Marcus will make sure you don't get a second chance." Jason laughed bitterly. "So either way, I'm screwed." "Welcome to consequences," the detective replied. Jason's mind went straight to his family. Emily's terrified face, Ethan's voice on the phone, his mom crying, his dad broken. He nodded slowly. "I'll talk." When Robert heard Jason agreed to cooperate, something inside him snapped. "I failed him," Robert whispered. Linda grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "You're still here. That matters." But Robert knew the truth. Saving his son now meant putting him in danger. Marcus didn't forgive. He eliminated. That night, Emily sat alone in her room, shaking. She pulled out her phone and opened a message thread she had never deleted. "Marcus, you're smarter than your brothers. Don't mess this up." Her heart dropped, because the truth was even worse than they thought. Marcus wasn't done with the Walkers. He was watching. The Walker house had never felt so small. Every creak of the floor sounded like footsteps. Every car passing by made Linda flinch. The same walls that once held laughter now felt like they were closing in. Robert double-checked the locks for the third time that night. "We're safe," he said, but his voice didn't believe it. Emily sat on the edge of her bed staring at her phone. "Unknown number, you thought talking to cops was smart." Her blood went cold. Another message followed. "I know where you sleep." At the station, Jason sat across from two detectives, sweat rolling down his back. "Marcus is planning something," Jason said. "He doesn't wait. He hits first." "You wearing a wire?" the detective asked. Jason nodded slowly. "Then you set the meat," the detective said. "We end this." Jason's stomach twisted. He knew Marcus. This wasn't going to be clean. Back home, Ethan noticed Emily wasn't acting right. "You good?" he asked. She forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But her hands were shaking. Ethan grabbed her wrist gently. "Emily, talk to me." She broke. "He texted me," she whispered. "Marcus, tonight." The words slammed into Ethan's chest. "Did you reply?" Emily shook her head. "He said if Jason talks, someone gets hurt." Ethan didn't hesitate. "We're leaving," he said. "Now." They barely made it to the driveway when headlights flooded the street. A black SUV rolled to a slow stop in front of the house. Windows tinted, engine humming. Robert stepped outside, chest tight. The window rolled down halfway. A voice came out, calm, familiar, dangerous. "Long time, Rob." "Marcus, leave my family alone," Robert said, fists clenched. Marcus smiled. "You should have thought about that years ago." The SUV sped off, but the message was clear. This wasn't over. At the same time, Jason walked into a downtown diner wearing a wire under his jacket. Marcus was already there, sipping coffee like it was just another night. "Look at you," Marcus said. "Almost didn't recognize you without fear on your face." Jason sat down, heart racing. "You said you had a way out," Jason said. Marcus leaned in. "I do, but first, you gotta prove loyalty." Jason swallowed. "How?" Marcus slid a photo across the table. It was Ethan, walking out of the house. Jason's blood ran cold. "Family or freedom," Marcus whispered. "Choose." Jason knew in that moment. There was no winning, only damage control. The hospital hallway smelled like disinfectant and regret. Jason sat alone on a plastic chair, staring at his hands. No matter how hard he scrubbed, he could still see the blood. His brother's blood. Every second replayed in his head on a brutal loop. If I had walked away earlier, if I had told the truth. Ethan lay unconscious behind a glass wall, tubes everywhere, fighting for a life he never asked to gamble. Linda hadn't said a word in hours. She just held Ethan's jacket like it was a piece of him she refused to let go. Robert stood beside her, jaw locked, eyes empty. Emily watched them both and felt something shift inside her. Fear was done running her life. Jason finally stood up and walked toward his father. "This ends with me," he said quietly. Robert looked at him, really looked, not as a disappointment, not as a screw-up. As his son. "You don't get to decide that alone," Robert said. Jason nodded. "I know, that's why I'm not running anymore." Across the city, Marcus sat in a high-rise apartment, feet up, TV on mute. He watched the news ticker roll across the screen. Local man critical after shooting near river. Marcus smirked. They always survive just enough to suffer, he muttered. Then his phone buzzed. Jason, you wanted loyalty. Let's finish this. Marcus paused, then smiled wider. At the station, the detectives listened as Jason laid everything out. Marcus thinks he's in control, Jason said. Let him believe it. The lead detective nodded slowly. We give him rope. And he hangs himself, Jason finished. That night, Emily sat by Ethan's bed. She leaned close and whispered, voice shaking but strong. You don't get to leave. You hear me? I still need my big brother. A finger twitched. Barely, but it was enough. Emily cried, this time not from fear, from hope. Jason stood outside the hospital, city lights glowing behind him. For the first time in a long time, he felt clear. No shortcuts, no lies, no running, just consequences and choice. Because part 9 is where the trap closes, and the past finally comes face to face with justice. Rain washed the city like it was trying to clean away the past. Jason drove through downtown Chicago, hands steady, mind locked in. No wire this time. No cops close enough to spook the play. Just enough distance to strike when it mattered. His phone buzzed. Marcus Pier 47, midnight, come alone. Jason replied with one word. Done. At the hospital, Emily watched from the window as Jason walked away. She knew this could be goodbye. Robert stood beside her. He's doing what I should have done years ago, Robert said. Facing it. Pier 47 was empty except for shipping, containers and the sound of water slapping against concrete. Marcus leaned against a railing, hoodie up, smile already loaded. Took you long enough, he said. Jason stepped out of the shadows. You wanted loyalty. You got it. Marcus laughed. After tonight, you disappear. New name, new life. That's the deal. Jason stared at him. That was never real, he said. Marcus tilted his head. Careful. Jason took a step closer. You shot my brother. Marcus's smile faded for half a second. Wrong place, wrong time. That was all Jason needed to hear. Across the pier, unmarked vans rolled in silently. Spotlights exploded on. Police, don't move! Marcus spun, reaching for his waistband. Too late. He hit the ground hard, cuffs snapping shut. Jason dropped to his knees, breath leaving his body like a confession. At the hospital, a nurse ran down the hallway. He's waking up, she shouted. Ethan's eyes opened slowly. The first face he saw was Emily's. You're stubborn, she laughed through tears. At the station, Marcus stared through the glass at Jason. You think this fixes you? Marcus sneered. Jason met his eyes. No, he said. But it stops you. Dawn broke over the city. Robert hugged his son for the first time in years. Linda held all 3 kids like she was afraid to let go. They were broken, but they were together. And part 10, that's the aftermath, the healing, the cost of survival. The question is, can a family truly move on, or do scars last forever? 3 months later, the house on Maple Street looked the same, but everything inside it had changed. Sunlight came through the windows again, not because life was perfect, but because the storm had finally passed. Ethan walked slowly, a slight limp, reminding everyone how close they came to losing him. But he was alive. And in this family, that was everything. Jason watched his brother from the porch, guilt still heavy on his shoulders. Prison time was coming, reduced but real. Cooperation had saved years, not consequences. Ethan broke the silence. You're still my brother, he said. Don't ever forget that. Jason's eyes burned. I won't. Robert no longer hid from his past. He talked, he apologized, he owned every mistake. And for the first time, his children saw him not as a hero, but as a man trying to do better. Linda finally slept through the night again. Emily started writing everything she saw, everything she felt. She understood now, silence protects no one. Marcus Reed was sentenced to life. No deals, no escape. The cycle ended with him. On Jason's last night home, the family sat together at the same table where everything once began. No yelling, no lies, just truth. We didn't break, Linda said softly. We bent. Robert nodded, and we stood back up. As Jason left the next morning, he turned back one last time. Take care of each other, he said. They already were. Some families fall apart when life hits hard. Others survive. This wasn't a story about crime. It was a story about choices, about how one mistake can echo through generations, and how love, when it's real, refuses to quit. If this story moved you, remember this: no matter how dark it gets, family is the last thing worth fighting for. And sometimes, still standing is the biggest win of all.